Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting of Tuesday, June 14th for the town of Quispamsis. We got a large agenda tonight. I think we have 12 items, so we'll move through those accordingly and get everyone out of here at a reasonable hour. So with that, on item 2, can I have approval of the agenda, please? Mr. Bishop?
So moved.
Can I have a seconder on that? Mark? Okay, good, thank you. We voting at it, Violet? Motion carried. With that, we'll move on to item 3, disclosures of interest. None being, we'll move on to item 4, approval of previous minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the previous minutes, please? Brenda?
So moved.
Can I have a seconder on that? Mark?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Can we have a vote on that, please? Motion? Motion carried. We'll move on to the next item. Item 5, business arising from previous minutes. Can I have a motion to receive and file, please? Mr. Bishop?
So moved.
Can I have a seconder on that? Brenda?
I'll second that.
Motion carried. That being, we'll move on to item 6, unfinished business. None being, we'll move on to item 7, new business, 127 Chamberlain Road. Could the applicant please come up to the podium and state their name for the record?
Hi there, my name's
Nathan, great. We're going to have Jennifer introduce that item for us. Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant is looking for approval for keeping 3 chickens at 127 Chamberlain Road. They are located in R1 zone, R1 residential, with 8,028 square meters, which is just shy of 2 acres. They have stated that they would like to have permission to keep 3 chickens on the subject lot in a backyard chicken coop. The PAC has previously approved 6 backyard chicken applications. The smallest land area was 3,450 square meters, and the person were allowed to keep 4 chickens. The proposed location to place the chicken coop is as far away from Iris Lane as possible. And the property that is found to the north of 127 Chamberlain is a 16-acre property that contains a main dwelling unit, barn, and livestock. There's lots of screening for the subject property, so no one from Iris Lane would be able to see or from Chamberlain into the yard. The chicken coop will be located a distance from the well at 127 Chamberlain. I did a rough estimate. It's approximately 50 meters. There's also a section in the bylaw 8G2DIII, which says that no accessory building shall be used for agricultural purpose or the keeping of animals. We would require a variance to that section of the bylaw to allow this to proceed. The subject property does provide an appropriate amount of screening, as I suggested. The applicants are proposing to gather and store the nutrient-rich chicken droppings in a manure tumbler to be used as fertilizer for their gardens. This project is also being used for educational purposes for their young family, to teach them about responsibility. And also, chickens are proven to be very good way to control ticks in your yard, and as such, the applicant has suggested that they would use a chicken tractor, which is a enclosed cage which is moved around the property. So we would just have to make sure that setbacks were set verbally for that to ensure that they maintain the 3-meter distance from a side or rear lot line. Notices were sent to properties within 100 meters. No concerns were received from the public. I just want to make sure everyone's aware that we are a well-based community, and that should be a concern when we're speaking about chickens and other farm animals. Perhaps the PAC would confirm with the applicant the storage structure that's used for both the chicken feed and the manure. Staff have no issues with the application.
Thank you, Jennifer. Mr. Kierstead, you would have received the same package we did in the mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or members of the public asking you some questions?
The only thing I'd like to review would be the number of chickens.
Okay,
We do request having 3 chickens. We don't need more than that at the time. I don't know what the bylaw is. I think the bylaw is up to 6. So just if that could be amended for future down the road, if we did want 6, if that could be reviewed.
okay, thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? Brenda?
My first question was going to be why 3, but I think you're talking about that. But can you explain to me this type of fencing, and the chicken coop itself moves around, does it? Or is that a permanent building and just the fencing goes out?
Yeah, really good question. So we would have the chicken coop, and then it's called a chicken run, where you have
Okay.
a fenced in area. And then we almost have like a chicken tunnel that they call chunnels, that you can allow the chicken's entrance, and they can kind of walk back and forth outside the gated area, and you can move it with just picking it up with your hands.
Okay.
But it's totally contained. They won't be free range all over the property. They won't go past a certain point.
I know there are some places that they do have free range chickens.
Sure.
And I was, walking one day and there's chickens. I did not know they were there, but they were not, annoying of any sort. So, yes, I was just wondering what that was like. And the storage of the manure.
Yeah, so the manure, it almost gets taken out of the chicken coop at a certain point and put into a tumbler. It's almost a round container that has a handle that spins. And every couple of days you'll get it wet and you'll put in your other compost items like leftover vegetables or any compost.
Okay.
And then every couple months you'd put in some straw or hay or a little more durable material. And then after 6 months you can use that as compost for your gardens.
But it doesn't have a strong aroma?
No, it's contained.
Because you've done this before.
Yeah, well, before we moved to Quispam, we lived in Laurenville and we had 6
Okay.
chickens before.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Brenda. Any other members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? None being, is there anyone in the audience or online would like to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Brent?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion. PAC permit the compatible use for the keeping of backyard chickens and a variance to section 8G2D3 to allow the keeping of animals in accessory structure at 127 Chamberlain Road, PID 301-27732, subject to the following conditions. 1, no male chickens, commonly called roosters, shall be permitted. 2, the coop and run must be no closer than 30 meters to any existing well. 3, the coop and run must be located behind the front line of the dwelling, and the run must be screened from adjacent properties and from the street. 4, the coop and run must be no closer than 3 meters from the side or rear lot line. 5, maximum number of chickens permitted will be as per the current Town of Quispamsis bylaws. 6, the sale of eggs, meat, or any other byproduct is not permitted. 7, the hens must be in enclosure at all times. 8, chicken feed must be stored in an imperious container that cannot be opened by other animals. And 9, manure must be stored in an imperious closed container and disposed of properly.
Thank you, Brent. Someone like to have second that, please? Brenda?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We don't really have a bylaw per se that governs the chickens within the town of Quispamsis, so I think that we should probably put a number for the number of chickens permitted to be used at this site. So I think that the applicant has requested 6. I checked we do have permitted 6 chickens on Pettingill Road with a pretty similar lot size. So I think we could agree to 6.
To a maximum of 6? Okay, thank you. Any further debate on that motion? None being, can we please have a vote, please? Motion carried. Congratulations. In 5 to 7 business days, you have a letter in the mail with your approval. So please work with the town to have all your necessary documentation in place, and best of luck and good luck raising some chickens and getting some eggs. You're welcome. That being, we're going to move on to item 7B, 2 Addison Court. Could the applicant please come up and state their name for at the podium, please? Mr. Carmichael, we're going to have Jennifer introduce that item, then we may open the floor up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant is requesting approval to erect a pool such that it has a 2-meter side yard setback, and also for approval of a fence erected in such a manner that it is 30 centimeters setback from the property line at 2 Addison. As per section 6T6A of the zoning bylaw, a swimming pool and accessory structured deck shall be located 3 meters from the rear and side lot lines, and per section S6S7, a fence or any greenery bordering a property are to be located at least 60 centimeters from the property line. The property is found in an R1 zone with 1,272 square meters. They will require a 1-meter variance to allow the project to proceed as follows for the pool, and a 30-centimeter setback for the fence. During a review of the application, it was noted that there is an existing accessory building on the lot, that there is no record for a permit. Staff have made the applicants aware of the nonconformity and further have been advised that this will be brought into conformity. So not to worry, and actually they're going to use the accessory building that's currently on the lot as part of the pool enclosure for their pool supplies, and it is shown on the site plan. Notices were sent to properties with 100 meters, and no concerns were received, and staff have no concerns with this application.
Thank you, Jennifer. Mr. Carmichael, you would have received the same package we did in the mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or the public asking you some questions?
Thing would be the accessory that she's talking about. Basically, that was the previous owner, so we didn't know it didn't have a permit. So yeah,
Yeah, but you're going to incorporate that into your
yeah, we'll do the permit.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? Brenda?
A quick one. Is that an in-ground pool or above-ground pool? Yes, in-ground. In-ground. Okay, and you have enough room my neighbor just got a pool, and I know how much digging it took to on either side of it. Do you have room for that, you think?
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Brenda. Any further questions for the applicant from PAC? None being, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Mr. Guest?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to put forward the motion that the Planning Advisory Committee approve the 1 meter setback to section 6T, 6A, and a 0.30 meter setback to section 6S7 from bylaw number 038 at 2 Addison Court, PID 30347496, subject to the following terms and conditions. The side lot line abutting 6 Addison Court will be clearly delineated prior to the installation of the pool and fence. All construction and future fence maintenance found at 2 Addison Court must occur on the applicant's property, and a building permit is issued prior to construction.
Thank you, Mark. Can I have a seconder on that? Mr. Goslin?
Second, sir.
Thank you. Any debate on that motion? None being, could we please have a vote? Motion carried. In 5 to 7 business days, you have a letter in the mail with your approval. Please work with the town to have all necessary paperwork and documentation in place, and best of luck with your pool. You're welcome. You too. Just for everyone's update too, if you're finished, and you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting, but if you wish to, you're more than welcome to. It's up to you if you want to stay or not. We'll move on to item 7C, 84 Kellers Hill Road. Could the applicant please come up to the podium, state your name for the record, please? Edward Langstroth. Okay, we're going to have Jennifer introduce that item for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant is requesting approval for a 6 meter side yard setback for the siting of a mini home, and for approval for the location of an accessory building such that it is in the front line of the main dwelling unit at 84 Kellers Hill Road. Section 25F3 states that the main dwelling must be located on a lot such that the side lot line setback is 30 meters on at least one side. And Section 2501AI states that no accessory building or structure may be placed or altered so that it is, except in the case of agriculture and forestry, within the front yard of a main building or structure. The lot is located in a rural zone with 8,517 square meters. The mini home was erected on foundation piles without a permit. And while we were bringing it into conformity, it was noticed that the 30 meter side yard setback was not met. So that's why we're here today. And also there was an accessory structure in front of the front line of the dwelling unit. So bringing the property into conformity. The only thing that I would like to add is that there is some wet area at the front, and we would be requesting a drainage plan be submitted before a building permit is issued. We sent notices out to properties within 50 meters, and there were no concerns received, and staff have no concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Mr. Langstroth, you would have received the same package we did in the mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to questions from PAC or members of the public? Okay, thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? Brenda?
Just a quick question. Was there something on that lot before you put your new home on it? Because it looks like a defined roadway in there.
Yes, there used to be, at one point in time in that property, there was an old mill in there,
Okay,
70 years ago or 100
Okay.
maybe. But that was an old existing road at one point.
Okay. okay. Thank you.
Any further questions to the applicant from members of PAC? None being, is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions? Mr. Goslin.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion forward to approve the 6.60 meter side yard setback from the town zoning bylaw 038, section 25F3, to allow for the setting of a mini home and approve a variance of section 2501AI on the same bylaw to permit an accessory building in the front yard at 84 Calars Road, PID number 30322127, subject to the following terms and conditions. 1, a site drainage plan is submitted to and accepted by the development officer prior to the issuance of a building permit. And number 2, the accessory building is not to be used for a business purpose, the keeping of livestock or a dwelling unit.
Thank you, Mark. Can I have a seconder on that? Brenda?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any debate on the motion? None being, can we please vote, please? Motion carried. 5 to 7 business days, you have a letter in the mail with your approval. Please work with the town to have all your necessary paperwork and documentation in place, and best of luck. You're welcome. We'll move on to item 7D, 82 Leiden Drive, home occupation. Could the applicant please come up, state their name for the podium, please?
Webb.
Hazel Webb. I'm going to have Jennifer introduce the topic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The application is for home occupation at 82 Linden Drive. It is a web project and data solutions-based business. Reference to the municipal plan 731, it shall be an objective of the town to foster economic growth by providing opportunity for emerging entrepreneurs and small businesses to become established without initial significant investment. This location, the lot is located in an R1 zone with a lot area of 1,257 square meters. The applicants have recently relocated to Quispam and would like to operate a home occupation in their home. The home occupation provides database management and support to external businesses. The applicants are proposing to use one room in the home equal to 15% of the overall dwelling area. The intention is to accommodate an office where consulting services can be provided. The applicants have indicated that no one will visit the site for business purpose. There are no set hours for the business. They are the only employers of the business are those that own the dwelling. There will be no visible signage. And there was a home occupation at 82 Linden prior to this. It was approved by PAC in 2009 for an accounting services. All the home occupation approvals are not transferable and they stay with the owner. So that's why we're here tonight. We provided notices to properties within 100 meters at the time of the writing of the report. No concerns have been received, none to the date that I'm aware of, and staff have no concerns with this proposed use.
Thank you, Jennifer. Ms. Webb, you would have received the same package we did in the mail. Is there anything you'd like to discuss or add prior to members of PAC or the public asking some questions?
No, I don't think so, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Members of PAC, any member of PAC have any questions for the applicant? None being, is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions? Brent?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the following motion that PAC grant approval for a home occupation web project and data solutions at 82 Linden Drive, PID 300656119, subject to the following conditions. 1, it should be secondary to the main residential use of the dwelling. 2, not more than one person is engaged therein in addition to any permanent resident of the dwelling unit in which it is located. 3, it is confined to the dwelling unit and no part of it is located in an accessory building or structure. 4, the floor area of the dwelling unit which is devoted to it does not exceed the lesser of 25% of the floor area of the dwelling unit, or 32 square meters. 5, no change except for a sign pursuant to the signs bylaw is made in the outside appearance of the building, which indicate that a home occupation is being conducted therein unless approved by the building inspector through the process of a building permit. 6, no goods or services other than those directly pertaining to the home occupation are supplied or sold therein or therefrom. 7, no equipment or material used therein is stored other than in the dwelling unit. 8, not more than one commercial vehicle used in connection therewith, or not more than one vehicle of any kind bearing a sign in connection therewith is parked on the lot. 9, there to be no parking on the street or within city property. And 10, the PAC approval to operate the business is not transferable. The approval is solely for the benefit of the property owner named herein. In the event the business is discontinued or the lands are transferred, the said approvals shall terminate.
Thank you, Brent. Can I have a seconder on that? Mark?
Mr. Chairman, I second that.
Thank you, Mark. Can we please have a vote on that? Oh, is there any debate for very first? No debate, we'll have a vote. Sorry. Motion carried. 5 to 7 business days. You have our letter in the mail with your approval. Please make sure all necessary paperwork is filed and completed with the town, and best of luck in your business adventure. You're welcome. We'll move on to item 7E, 24 Bridgeford Drive. Could the applicant please come up and state your name at the podium, please?
Scott Maxwell.
Mr. Maxwell, we're going to have Jennifer introduce the item, and then we'll get back to you. Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant is requesting approval to construct an overheight and oversized detached garage at 24 Bridgeford Drive here in Quispamsis. Section 8G1A of zoning bylaw 38 states no accessory building or structure used as a detached garage may exceed 1 story or 5 meters in height above the mean grade. Section 8G1C of the same bylaw says no accessory building or structure used as a detached garage may exceed 63 square meters in area or have a horizontal dimension greater than 10 meters. The subject lot is found in a rural zone with 4,180 square meters. The applicant is seeking a 20.2 square meter variance to permit an 83.2 square meter detached garage. The subject lot currently has an accessory building on the lot in the area that's identified on the site plan for the proposed detached garage. If the accessory building is going to be removed from the lot, a demolition permit will be required. And if the accessory building is going to be placed elsewhere on the lot, a site plan indicating where it will be placed on the lot must be submitted to the planning department to ensure that the new location conforms with the zoning bylaw. Notices have been sent to property owners within 50 meters of the property. No concerns were received, and staff have no concerns with the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Mr. Maxwell, you would receive the same package we did in the mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to questions from BAC or the public? Okay, thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? Brenda?
Keep the meeting going here. What about your little accessory building? Are you keeping it or,
I'll move it.
okay? It's probably a useful thing, so.
Well, to be honest with you, it's already moved.
It's what?
It's already moved, to be honest with you. I get all my neighbors' water running through my yard. Every bit of their water comes through my yard. So it runs right under where that was. So I pulled it to the other side of the lot, cleared the trees, put a ditch all the way around my property to
I
control
see
the
that.
water.
Okay.
I can tell you exactly where it's at if you want.
It'll have to be identified on with the town after when
Yeah,
the
I
other
didn't
plan
know
comes
that.
in.
I didn't know that at the time. I moved it to save it from all the water.
Okay,
But anyways, yeah, I get all my neighbors' drain tiles and everything running, pointing right on my property, running, all their water runs right through my property.
okay.
So
So you get that repaired, remediate it.
rectified that hopefully last summer.
Thank you. Any further questions for the applicant from members of PAC? None being, is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Mr. Guest?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to put forward the motion that the Planning Advisory Committee approve both the 1 meter height variance to section 8G1A and a 20.2 size variance to section 8G1C of zoning bylaw number 038 for 24 Bridgeford Drive, PID 3027-3387. Subject to the following terms and conditions. Number one, the exterior finish of the detached garage is to be a cladding recognized by the National Building Code of Canada, current adopted edition. Number two, the proposed garage is not used as a dwelling unit or for the keeping of livestock or as a home business. And number three, a building permit is issued prior to construction.
Thank you, Mark. Can we have a second on that? Mr. Bishop?
I'll second that.
Any debate on that motion? Can we please vote? Oh, you go, Mr. Bishop, go ahead.
Yeah, just a statement. If there's a problem with water coming on your property from your neighbors, you can have that addressed with the town because they're supposed to control their own water on their own lot.
And I didn't like their answer, and I don't think my neighbors liked that answer either. I was told it was a civil suit.
Well.
And I asked why, if you guys approve drainage plans for, before buildings are built, why were they directed onto my property and approved by the town? Sounds like a civil suit. That's the answer I got.
Yeah.
So I cleared my land and I put a ditch around it. It cost me.
Yeah,
I didn't fight with my neighbors.
that's a shame. Okay.
Get pictures of the water that runs down through my property. It looks like waterfalls. Before I put the ditch there, I had water running through my property, off my neighbor's property, hit the main door in my garage that's attached to my house, and run out my garage door. That's why I asked for a variance in height, so I could leave 2 foot of concrete out of the ground, so if any water hits it, it'll go around it instead of running through it.
Yeah, sorry to hear that, Mr. Maxwell.
I just wish I could have got help from the town, that's all.
Yeah. Any further debate on that motion? Could we please vote, please? Thank you. Motion carried. 5 to 7 business days. You have a letter in the mail with your approval. Please make sure you have all necessary paperwork filed with the town, and best of luck in your garage, and hopefully the water stays away from your property.
I hope so. Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll move on to item 7F, Pleasant Avenue, 8 Pleasant Avenue. Could the applicant please come up to the podium and state your name for the record, please.
Evening, my name's Steve Tibbetts.
Mr. Tibbetts, we're going to have Jennifer introduce that topic, then we'll get back to you. Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant is requesting a 4.8 meter front yard setback for 8 Pleasant Avenue. Bylaw variance is, section, it says 6.E, but it should read 8E 1A of zoning bylaw 38. The front yard setback for a local road is 7.5 meters. Pleasant Avenue is a local road. The lot is found in an R1 zone and has 2,024 square meters. We did just approve a foundation elevation variance on April 14th for this property. The reason that they are requesting a reduction of 4.8 meters, so it would leave a 2.7 meter front yard setback, is that the back portion of the lot drops off dramatically, and it will cost upwards of $20,000 to bring in enough fill to compact it and make it suitable to build the house. So it was suggested to bring the building forward where the lot is it does not require that fill. The landowner has suggested in the application that if the Planning Advisory Committee is not in favor of the 4.8 meter front yard setback variance, any reduction in the 7.5 meter setback would be helpful. We did send out notices to neighboring properties within 50 meters. No concerns have been received from the public, and staff have no concerns with this request.
Thank you, Jennifer. So in saying that, the town has no problem with what he's asking for anyway. Okay. Mr. Tibbetts, you would have received the same package we did in the mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC asking you questions or members of the public?
Just that we do have a picture. I'm not sure if you have it accessible or not, but it shows the position of the proposed building on the lot, and the move forward of that structure would only be positioning the garage forward on the driveway. The house portion of the building would still remain at the required I'm not sure what the number is, 25-foot setback. And yeah, the expense of that, we're hoping we can recover and apply to solar energy.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions for the applicant from members of PAC? None being, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time. Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions? Mr. Goslin.
Mr. Chairman, I'll put a motion forward that Planning Advisory Committee grant the 4.8 meter front yard setback variance to section 6E1A of the zoning bylaw 038 for 8 Pleasant Avenue, PID number 30016034, subject to the following terms and conditions. 1, a building permit is issued prior to the construction.
Thank you, Mark. Can I have a seconder on that? Mr. Preston?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any debate on the motion? Mr. Bishop?
Jennifer, was it not 8? That's supposed to be 8E1A? Okay, just to clarify that.
Okay, did you get that, Violet? Thank you. Perfect. That being said, any debate? None being, can we please vote? Motion carried. In 5 to 7 business days, you have a letter in the mail with your approval. Please work with the town to have all necessary paperwork and documentation filed, and best of luck. You're welcome. With that being, we're going to move on to 303 Model Farm Road. Could the applicant please come up and state his name for the record?
It's Chris Toole.
Chris Toole. We're going to just get Jennifer to introduce the item first. Jennifer? Oops.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant is requesting to construct a detached garage on a waterfront property at 303 Model Farm Road. It is located in a rural zone with 9,280 square meters. Section 6BB1A of zoning bylaw 38 states, no alteration of existing buildings or land shall occur on any property bordering a watercourse without first requesting and being granted approval by the Planning Advisory Committee. But I did have a recommendation in here for a letter from the Department of Environment be requested by the PAC, but that was provided today by the applicant, so we have received notification from the Department of Environment that a WAWA or watercourse and alteration permit is not required for the property. The subject lot was granted a 13.19 meter foundation elevation variance in August 13, 2013. A hold harmless agreement has been registered against the property. There's the proposed garage is going to be 68 meters from the river's edge. The only concern that we did have was the location of the wellhead to the new proposed building. New Brunswick, Province of New Brunswick regulation states that it has to be a 2 meter setback, and that has been provided. Notices were sent to properties within 50 meter radius, and no concerns were received, and other than the wellhead, and that's been satisfied, staff have no further concerns.
Thank you, Jennifer. Mr. Toole, you would have received the same package we did in the mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or the public asking you some questions?
No, not really. I just wanted to state that the reason I'm here, in my mind, was because I wanted to move it away from the well cap, because I didn't want to drive out of my new garage into my well cap. So I think we've met the requirements for that, and so I'm happy to hear that I'm able to set it back further than what I thought was the original regulation or the bylaw by the town.
All right, thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? None being, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Mr. Preston.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that PAC approve the development of a detached garage as per section 6BB1A of the zoning bylaw 038 on a waterfront property located at 303 Model Farm Road, PID 302-68189, subject to the following terms and conditions. 1, the detached garage should not be used for the purpose of a business, a dwelling unit, or for the keeping of livestock. 2, the exterior finish of the garage is to be cladding recognized by the National Building Code of Canada, current adopted edition, and 3, building permit to be obtained prior to construction.
Thank you, Brent. Member, can I have a seconder on that? Mr. Guest?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there any debate on that motion? Mark, you okay with that? Yeah, okay. Can we have a vote, please? Motion carried. In 5 to 7 business days, you have a letter in the mail with your approval. Please work with the town to have all necessary paperwork and documentation in place, and best of luck in your garage. You're welcome. We'll move on to item 7H, 7 Waverly Lane. Is the applicant online? Could the applicant please state their name for the record, please?
Hi, it's Misha Albert.
Okay, Misha, we're going to get, I think Jennifer is going to introduce that item. So go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant is requesting a home occupation at 7 Waverly Lane, a home body Pilates studio. Reference to the municipal plan 7.3.1, it shall be an objective of the town to foster economic growth by providing opportunity for emerging entrepreneurs and small business to become established without initial significant investment. The lot is found in an R1 zone with 1,412 square meters. The home occupation will provide Pilates instruction as a home occupation for a maximum of 15 sessions a week. There will be no staff other than the owners of the dwelling. Any expected increase to traffic would be 1 to 2 vehicles at one time. They have indicated that their driveway can accommodate up to 4 cars, so this would meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw. The business is proposed to operate Monday through Saturday by appointment only, and the appointments will be made only during the daytime hours, so no nighttime appointments. The applicant is proposed to erect a small sign in the front garden that will adhere to the sign bylaw and will need to receive a building permit for that. Staff does have one concern. Oh, sorry. Notices were sent to properties within 100 meters, and we did receive a concern, a copy of which has been provided in your package. The concern is founded in increased traffic and concerns around a rezoning. So I think there was a little confusion about what was actually happening at this property. Because this is not a rezoning, it is simply to allow a home occupation. Staff is concerned that there was no mention of a number of participants per each session, so PAC may want clarification or to set perimeters around how many participants would be allowed at the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Misa Albert, you would have received the same package we did in the mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or the public asking you some questions?
Sure. I just want to note that the studio is a private studio, so that means I generally work with one person at a time. There has been times where I may see 2 people, but they're generally from the same household, like spouses or a parent and child. So generally that would mean 1 vehicle coming to the property at a time. I also teach online, so probably at least half of those 15 hours would be online where nobody's coming to the property. And I just wanted to note that in the staff report, it said that I think it was 24% of the dwelling would be used for the studio, but technically it's only about 12% as it is 25% of the basement, not of the entire dwelling.
All right, thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? Brenda?
What type of equipment do you have to have for your Pilates? And what is your long-range business plan? Always to being small like that or expanding sometime?
For the foreseeable future, I plan to keep my business structure as it is at about 15 hours a week. I think that's, for my lifestyle, that fits well with for me. And for the equipment, I do have equipment that's specific to Pilates. There's one piece of equipment called a reformer, which may mean, absolutely nothing to anyone there, but it's just specific to Pilates equipment. We also use mats, which everyone has seen. It's similar to a yoga mat, and small props like hand weights or inflatable balls.
Okay, thank you. Brenda?
Thank you.
Any other members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? None being, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Mr. Guest?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Put forward the motion that the Planning Advisory Committee grant approval for a home occupation, home body Pilates studio at 7 Waverly Lane, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, it shall be secondary to the main residential use of the building. Number 2, not more than 2 people are engaged therein in addition to any permanent resident of the dwelling unit in which it is located. Number 3, it is confined to the dwelling unit and no part of it is located in an accessory building or structure. Number 4, the floor area of the dwelling unit which is devoted to it does not exceed the lesser of 25% of the floor area of the dwelling unit or 32 square meters. And number 5, no change except for a sign pursuant to the town sign bylaw is made in the outside appearance of the building which would indicate that a home occupation is being conducted therein unless approved by the building inspector through the process of a building permit. Number 6, no goods or services other than those directly pertaining to the home occupation are supplied or sold therein or therefrom. Number 7, no equipment or material used therein is stored other than in the dwelling unit. Number 8, not more than 1 commercial vehicle used in connection therewith, or not more than 1 vehicle of any kind bearing a sign in connection therewith is parked on the lot. Number 9, there is to be no parking on the street or within town property. And number 10, the PAC approval to operate the business is non-transferable. The approval is solely for the benefit of the property owner named herein. In the event the business is discontinued or the lands are transferred, the said approval shall terminate.
Thank you, Mark. Can I have a seconder on that?
Second that.
Brent, second that. On the debate, any question on the debate? Brenda?
I just think we should have in there a number of clients could be there at the same time, like a maximum of like 4 or 2 or whatever. Because the number of cars is 4, but the applicant said they usually one-on-one, just 2 people in there. So I think we should.
On that?
I would say no more than 4 at the time.
Okay. Violet, you have something on that?
We was trying to clarify that not more than 2 people engaged was what you were thinking of for the attendees. That's actually for staff. So I think he was trying to cover that by saying the 2 people, but if you want to add that to 4, I can put that in.
That was a misunderstanding on my part. I was reading condition number 2 as the amount of patients, not the amount of staff, so I'm good with that.
Staff back to 1?
Yes.
And 4 people?
Yes.
Any further debate? 4 clients, yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Bishop?
Is that acceptance of the applicant for people at a time?
I'm totally fine with that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So what would we say, 4 total, including the 4 clients? Okay, perfect. Any further debate? Can we have a vote on that, please? Oops, wait, Dwight, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question, clarification. There's been a change to the original motion that was put forward. Are we increasing number of clients that can attend the property? And I guess second part to that is what was put to the public. If there's a specific number put to the public and PAC is changing it on the fly, that might be a question that needs clarification.
I think what was put to the public was traffic increase is 1 to 2 vehicles at a time.
So it was specific to traffic and not,
Can you confirm that, Violet? It was.
okay, thank you.
Dwight?
No.
Okay, can we have a vote on that, please? Motion carried. In 5 to 7 business day, Missa, you'll have a letter in the mail with your approval. Please make sure you have all necessary paperwork and documentation filed with the town, and best of luck with your home business.
Thank you kindly.
You're welcome. With that being, we're going to move on to item 7I, Fernwood Park, Phase 6. Could the applicant please come up and state their name for the record? Mr. Donovan, we're going to have Dwight introduce that item. Dwight, could you give us a little update on that application?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Fernwood Phase 6 is before PAC. This item was before PAC, I believe it was in August of 2021. So it's back before PAC as there's been a change in the overall, I guess not the overall, but there's been change in the street configuration. And also this one introduces land for public purposes for the purpose of stormwater management. There's been some additional land for public purposes proposed as well that PAC would take into consideration. So it's before the Planning Advisory Committee because under the Community Planning Act and our subdivision bylaw, any subdivision plan that proposes the creation of a public street and land for public purposes must be reviewed by the Planning Advisory Committee prior to granting approvals and prior to council assent. In addition to that, there's, as noted in my staff report, there's some variances with respect to lot width and lot area. The amount of the variance is almost negligible in terms of size. You're looking at, in some cases, 9 square meters, 10 square meters, and it's just sort of a configuration of where the lots are located. There's also street grade variance as the street that connects Deagle Drive to Merlin Street, which is identified in the plan as, I believe, Street 1, is 10% proposed final grade, which means 2% a street grade variance from the subdivision bylaw, which permits a maximum grade of 8%. The developer is proposing the majority of the area be serviced by storm sewer, so that addresses the concerns that are normally brought forward when we look at steeper streets or steeper grades on the streets. So at this stage, PAC must obviously look at the overall layout of the streets, the connectivity with the adjoining subdivisions, connectivity or traffic or street layout within the subdivision itself. In my staff report, I've mentioned that PAC may wish to designate to the development officer the authority to approve the street names. At this stage, Street 1, Street 2 are not acceptable street names, so obviously there's got to be some street names put forward that needs review. So rather than bringing that back to PAC, I'm simply asking if PAC would consider delegating the authority for the development officer to approve those, which ultimately gets approved through council and council's assent. I've also just brought a couple of items in terms of the portion of the subdivision plan that goes from basically Street 1 that includes Circle Court moving down towards Meadowlark. When I look at those lots and I look at the proposed boundary line, they actually are encroaching or they're on to the adjoining property. And which means at this stage, I've not received sort of an application that's been signed by the adjacent property owner or aware of any approval. So I need from that perspective, there needs to be some clarification in terms of, is that going to be a land transfer that would allow those lots to be approved as proposed? Or if not, then obviously that area would have to be adjusted accordingly. And the other item would be, and it's not so much as PAC, it would be with respect to the delineated, potential delineated wetland. The plan indicates that it's the edge of the wetland. So does that mean there's another 30-meter buffer on top of that, which would encroach on some of those lots? And does that ultimately mean that that development would actually have a potential to impact all that identified potential wetland that's ultimately greater than 2 hectares? So just some clarifications that planning, and as we move through the process, would be looking at. I think that's sufficient for this stage. If PAC has questions, then we can address those as we move forward.
Thank you, Dwight. Mr. Donovan, you would have received the same package we didn't mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC and the public asking you questions?
No, I'm okay. More than happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? Brent?
Mr. Chairman, Merlin Street, the south end by Circle Court, what's the next phase? How is that gonna tie in? I guess where's that street gonna go from where it is now, Peter?
So ideally, in the future, that street will connect to Metal Arc Drive.
Okay.
As Dwight mentioned about the potential wetland area, we've spent basically the last year and a bit working with the Department of Environment, local government to determine exactly what we can and can't do there. At this stage, we wouldn't be able to move forward there because the overall wetland size there is greater than 2 hectares. What this phase is going to allow us to do is, when we originally bought this property, there's no indicated wetland on the GOMB mapping, with the exception of what you see that we've contributed to land for public purposes. So we had full intentions of putting houses everywhere. Right now, we're basically skirting around the outside of that wetland. To enter that wetland, we would have to complete an environmental impact assessment. That's not viable for us at this stage. We need to recover some cost from the purchase of the land, interest we've been paying. And then we'd be able to look in the future at potentially finalizing the development. That being said, we've tried to leave access to everywhere. We've tried to set up our lot lines so that we can do that development appropriately should we be able to do that in the future.
Mr. Bishop?
Yes, so have you looked at a tentative plan to replace trees? Have you come up with something yet, a proposal?
I've done a fair bit of study on it. So what I've actually determined, I had Brunswick Engineering's my design consultant on this. I had them fly the property with their drone. Gives us a really good, clear picture of where it's at today. And the portion of the property that we're looking to develop is still 40% treed. And so what I did is I took other developments at full build out. I tried to look at those. Those developments are between 0 and 15% treed. So basically what that's telling me is at full build out, we're actually gonna have less trees than we currently do now. So I guess that's gonna leave me working with staff and council, because I guess the recommendation is a reasonable amount of trees. So we have to determine what's reasonable. I'm more than happy to re-tree. We're looking at 52 lots, so it becomes a cost issue. If I've got to spend $2,000 a lot on trees, I'm spending $100,000 on trees. Whereas there's a lot of other developments, my own included, that have between 0 and 15% trees currently at full build out. A lot of the lots are are your minimum size, 100 by 125. It's very rare when we build a big house on those that there's much left for trees standing, especially with grade change, like we're working on a side hill. So to answer your question, as far as a replanting plan, I don't have anything drawn up, or haven't worked with anybody on that. My tentative idea would be to keep around the outskirts, the property lines, anywhere that we could provide buffer with other properties. For instance, like I think maybe it's Street 1, but like where properties back onto each other, it makes the most sense if we can keep, or if we can revegetate there to give people privacy from each other. We always try and keep anything we can side lot lines, but it's very difficult when, like, we're 100 feet wide house and one of the houses, or 100 feet wide lot, and the house we do most typically is just under 60 feet. So we have less than 20 feet on either side to play with, and we have to drive machines around them. So it is a real challenge.
Darren, you got another question?
Yeah, so Dwight, do you have any ideas on what the town might be looking for a reforestation plan? So it's going to come down to, as Mr. Donovan's indicated, it's going to come down to looking at what was sort of originally there, what would be a reasonable amount of trees that were necessary to clear, to be able to provide the infrastructure and necessarily for lot building, and then sort of establishing from that what would be reasonable to see planted. So it's going to come down to presenting the rationale behind ultimately the ultimate clearing of all the trees prior to the work that being undertaken, prior to approvals, and then looking at, okay, what would be a reasonable amount to bring back based on the requirements of the bylaw, where you're basically clearing for the servicing of the lots, construction of the lots, and then using that as a basis to establish what would be reasonable. Obviously, if there's areas that are sort of designated to be, land for public purposes, or sort of parked area, then seeing those obviously having trees as well. Where, there's been street tree programs and those types of things that the town has undertaken. So it could be a combination of those types of things. At this stage, it's important to recognize that it's an item that needs to be addressed, and having at least some steps forward to having a plan that council and then staff can look at and determine whether that would be a reasonable number or not. So I think that's an important item, and it's, I believe, steps forward, as Mr. Donovan's indicated, that he's undertaken to look at what that number, what that would look like at this stage.
Thanks, Dwight. Any other questions for the applicant?
I have one question, if that's okay. Has that been requested before of any other developer in the town of Quispamsis?
It's something that I would have to go back through to see, to my knowledge, directly in terms of going through PAC, and then ultimately, as the bylaw indicates, that it is a decision of council. So that is something that I would have to look at in terms of what's happened in the past. It's also looking at the level of initial impacts that have been undertaken through the process. The zoning bylaw and the subdivision bylaw says that basically tree clearing is to be limited to the amount that's necessary for the installation of services or infrastructure to service the lots, and then it's determined beyond that what is a reasonable amount. So I would have to go back to see if it's been utilized in the past with other developments.
Thanks, Dwight. You okay with that, Mr. Donovan? I have three things I'd like to bring up myself. So first thing, we're doing a tentative plan, right? It's not a final plan. Second thing would be, last time we were here when I think there was a cease, I'm guessing that was a cease and desist, was March of 2021. We're June of 2022. That's a year and 3 months have passed. And it doesn't seem to be any thing happening. I don't know if it's at a standstill. Is that something that we can put in before final approval, Dwight, that this has to be resolved before final sign-off is done with subdivision plan? And just before you speak, maybe, Dwight, one more thing was, I believe when Mr. Dunham was here, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, the gentleman was here from, I think, 6 Diggle Drive, and I thought part of the agreement we made that there was supposed to be something resolved with that property prior to any further work happening, whether it's graded or a retaining wall put in, and I don't think anything's been done yet to help that neighbor. I'm not sure, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's 1 year and 3 months gone by. So, we're getting, every time we get longer and longer and nothing seems to get resolved, but I'll leave that, maybe throw that back to Dwight, see if you can answer that, Dwight.
Regarding your first question, cease and desist, I'll direct that through you to Mr. Donovan to provide an update on where that stands. And I believe through this process, the property owner of 6 Deagle would have been notified, and it's my understanding that that property owner may be present to speak on that particular item as well. So I think that'll be addressed as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. With that being said, any further questions from PAC to the applicant? Brenda?
More of a question to Dwight, I guess. The lots there, 117 to 122 that are the longer ones towards the wetlands, they don't have to be that long. Could they be shortened and make more property going into the protected area? Because if you have long lots like that, different from all of the other ones, people are going to say, that's my property, I can do anything I want with it, which we know people do. So could those lots be a little shorter so that you're more protected area in the wetlands, because a lot of that property is not viable for anything anyway? And Dwight, you can answer that for me.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So what's been presented on the subdivision plan is the line that's running through those lots has been identified as potential wetland, which in terms of the subdivision bylaw and how we approve the lots, it comes down to basically the zoning bylaw that says a lot has to be a certain minimum size. And in this particular case, it's going to be municipally serviced with sewage, which means all those lots meet the minimum requirements. The fact that there is potential wetland on those lots, the subdivision plan itself does not sort of require them to be reduced. We look at what is ultimately the developable or of the lot, provided that that area is met, the 1,140 square meters, then the lots would be ultimately approved. What that means is basically any development, if those lots are sold as is, any development or anything undertaken within that area would be subject to a WAWA permit. So the development of those individual lots by the property owners, they would have to apply for WAWAs to do any particular development within that area. Planning did put forward the idea of that particular area being simply integrated or consolidated with the LPP, so it falls under the protection of the land for public purposes and made part of the wetland. However, I believe the response, my understanding, is that the desire would be to keep the lots as they are in terms of, because they're presented as being larger lots. But again, through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Donovan, he may be able to provide more of a response to those particular lots as they're designed.
Thanks, Dwight.
I would support those lots being the minimum size that you need, and because if they're on people's property, they'll do things like gradually fill in the wetland. We can't monitor it all, but if it's town property, then you can do more about it. So I would support those being shortened so that wetlands are more protected in that area. That's what I would like to see.
Thanks, Brenda. Brent?
2 questions. One, I guess either for Dwight or for Mr. Donovan. there's been several references from citizens about this trail in their emails. Is there a trail that's supposed to be part of this development, phase 1 or phase 2? And where's the trail supposed to be, and what's the rollout plan for the trail?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So when this development first came forward, prior to January 2020, as was indicated, this area wasn't sort of flagged in terms of a mapped wetland. So it moved forward as the area with the land for public purposes along the backs of the properties fronting Meadowlark, with the intention of it being land for public purposes for ultimately stormwater management, a trail to access the stormwater channels. That was the ultimate plan. Then the property was subject to undergoing a wetland delineation, which identified that particular area as an unmapped wetland, which is reflected on the plan today. As Mr. Donovan has indicated, any activity within that particular area will actually trigger an EIA because of the size of the wetland is 2 hectares or more. Where that leaves us in terms of the development of the trail and future development within the land for public purposes along there will obviously require further conversations with the Department of Environment and looking at what ultimately can be done in that area, what are the constraints, and what ultimately will happen to that particular area, if it will be developed, if it's developed, to what extent. So given what's occurred since the initial approvals, the ultimate goal is still to see a trail through that area and built to a reasonable standard, like the trails we have throughout our municipality. When that will happen and if it will happen and how it will look, at this point in time, there's still a number of factors that need to be addressed.
Thanks, Dwight. Brent, you got another question?
Yeah, my last question is, Mr. Donovan, the resident on Dingo Row where Street 1 comes up, what's your plan to address his concerns with the erosion and that road being so narrow and cutting into his property and that?
Yeah, so if it's okay, I'd like to take a couple steps back because Mr. Chairman made a similar comment. If you could zoom out, please. So since the last time I was in front of you guys, one of the stipulations of PAC at that time, or one of the recommendations from staff, which caught me very off guard because it was different from discussions we previously had with staff regarding the entire subdivision, was the retention of the stormwater. I met with Dwight previously prior to acquiring this property and through my previous phases. And the intent at that time was to allow our stormwater to flow into the Mud Lake wetland area. So when I came to you guys, that was news to me, or when I received the staff report. So that led to this large area here in the middle of the subdivision that's now going to be required to use for stormwater management. The chairperson mentioned we're a year later at this point and not much activities happen. Well, what adding that stormwater pond in has done to us is basically required us to revisit the design of the entire subdivision. So we looked at doing some underground storage and not having to give up more property in the middle of the subdivision. We worked at it quite extensively because Dwight prefers that type of thing rather than using up the property in the middle of the subdivision. It was quite difficult to do with the grades of the property, pipe sizing. We were looking at a very large pipe to accomplish much there. So that's led us back to here. We had to basically to put the pond where it is, we had to add streets. But basically to get back to your question, 6 Diggle, I've missed that completely in the last year. That's on me. It's my fault. So when I got the staff report Friday, we erected a snow fence along that property line this Monday. and it wasn't because we were trying to ignore the issue whatsoever. It was more so we were focused on how do we get this design back on track. And I've been working with my engineers for basically, we're 2 years into this now, and you guys see where we're at. We're bleeding cash here constantly. This project's at a point where it has to move forward. So we never intentionally ignored the residents at 6 Diggle Drive. The final plan at this stage and what we've submitted for an engineering design goes with what Dwight's recommended in the staff report, that we narrow the right-of-way by 3 meters, and we'll restore that to 2 lawn. I think it should be able to be accomplished with a slope, a grass slope, leading down to the final grade of the street. But yeah, I do apologize for that. We never intended to ignore the issue. It's other matters kind of went to the forefront, and it got missed.
Mark?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to understand the access to this new development there. Is the access gonna come from, what they call street number 1? Or also it's gonna come from the bottom of Merlin Street connecting with Middle Arc, I'm assuming here. So I'm just trying to understand where all the traffic flow is gonna be to this development. So just a question to Mr. Donovan or Dwight.
Going into are you asking about the proposed development or the undeveloped area that's remaining?
The proposed development there, where's the main access to the proposed development? Because the bottom of Merlin Street doesn't show it's connecting with anything in here on this plan. So then you gotta go to Quispamsis Road to street number 1, parcel A, access the development, and then you may come out. You mentioned earlier that you may come out on Gauche Arc Drive or Middle Arc Drive eventually. So I'm just trying to understand, like, this 51 lots in there, where's the traffic flow is gonna come from, and how's the traffic flow is gonna act upon this development, that's all.
So the main access is gonna be, it's shown as Civic 75 on Meadow Arc Drive. We're gonna remove that building lot, put the remnant property onto 79. That's the main access from our subdivision, and the secondary access will be going out next to 6 Diggle Drive.
Just help me out here, number 75, where's number 75 here? Okay,
So
thank you.
that's a previously approved building lot, and we're turning that into right away.
Okay, that's gonna be the main access to that property. So all the traffic's gonna go through Middle Arc and Gauche Arc Drive, okay, basically, okay.
Right, and then come out Diggle if they don't come back through.
So the bottom of Merlin Street there, where the circle court is, and at the bottom of it, this is not gonna connect with any Middle Arc or Quispamsis Road?
Not at this current stage. It's because that area is considered unmapped wetland now in between those two.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Donovan, thanks for answering those questions. Appreciate that. Any further questions? Mr. Bishop?
I guess we didn't get Mr. Donovan's comments on the what Brenda was asking for on those extended lots. What's your opinion on, I guess, those lots being extended out in towards the wetland or shortened?
So I would be willing to shorten them. They're currently more valuable as they are. If I'm selling somebody a larger piece of property, that's when I publish this map online. The first calls that I get are for those 10 lots on the right. I would be willing to work with staff and PAC on that, but my trees are my kind of concern. I'm certainly willing to give up more of that, but the overall development is my biggest. So I'm certainly open to working with people on that. But my biggest concern at this stage is that I need to get the development completed.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for PAC? Is there anyone in the audience or online? Could you please come up and state your name for the record? Mr. Donovan, could you have a seat, please?
evening. Excuse me. My name is David Down. I live at 6 Deagle Drive.
Okay,
I have a problem with the right adjacent to my property. They've dug a deep section to put a new road in. And one end of the section is about 2 feet. The other end is about 6 feet, if not longer. And it's been opened all the way along until yesterday. Yesterday they put a plastic fence up, one of those orange fences you see in construction when they're catching the water or whatever it is. And that's not satisfactory. If they're just doing it for now, that's okay, but it's not satisfactory. We want some type of solid wooden fence up there because it's way open. And I know what it's like in the winter time. We'll be getting loads of snow right into the area where I live on our driveway because of the north wind coming in. And you know, I don't want it to go on for another winter. We had to put up with it this last winter. But just yesterday, strangely enough, they put this little fence up.
yeah, and I think Mr. Donovan mentioned that earlier, but it's a construction fence, and I think he indicated that, I don't put words in anyone's mouth, that they're gonna slope that land back down to like a 2-to-1 slope, and the plan was to grade it, seed it as per, like put grass on it. That was from the previous meeting when, I think you were here that time and we didn't get to you, yeah, you were.
Messed it all up.
Yeah, no, it's all right. So is that something, I guess, you know, I guess between yourselves and the town and Mr. Diggle and Mr. Donovan will have to work out. Are you okay with the sloped rather than
Well,
having
I'm
a
all right
fence
with
up?
slope,
Just
but
want it cleaned up.
But I need a fence along there, some solid, not just this construction.
Yeah, I think that's a temporary fence, so you're asking for a permanent wooden fence to be
Right,
constructed?
or something that's solid. Yeah, wooden fence.
Okay, we'll take that down as noted. We can't guarantee that, but no, okay,
I
we
need
want to hear
something
your
that's gonna
concerns.
Hold for quite, a few years. I hope to be there for another 20 years, but whether I am or not, it's a different matter.
Okay.
But, I need something up there to, because that looks terrible what's there now.
Understood. No, I got that. So, and I guess are you happy if they just slope the land but no fence, or now you want a fence?
I need a fence anyhow, but if they soap the land, it's up to them because it's their land. Is there going to be another road right at the end of Dago? I see they've cut the woods all the way up to the road.
I don't think so, according to the plan up here on the screen on the left.
Oh, yeah.
There's no access,
No access,
no other subdivision, no other entrance up there.
That's another thing. There's going to be cars coming up and down there all the time, but anyhow, that's.
Yeah, that's correct, because that's a dead-end street now, right?
Yeah.
Top of Diggle, yeah. Okay, Dwight, go ahead, Dwight.
A portion of that property that has been referred to on the upper end of Deagle, there's a small block of land that's owned by the Department of Transportation. So in order to provide an access to that lot that abuts the arterial, the Department of Transportation would have to approve it, or it would have to be an acquiring of that land from the Department of Transportation. So that's why it hasn't been proposed. That's why it's being proposed as it currently sits, with access off of Merlin Street. Just to clarify.
Okay, thanks, Dwight. Yeah, that's a controlled access road, to the arterial anyway.
Yeah, but if you look on the plan, I think it's parcel 84-1, I think it's called.
Parcel 84-1, that one you mean?
Yeah, I think that's owned by the Department of Transportation.
Okay. All right, so we got your notes down here, and hopefully we'll get something resolved between yourself and Mr. Donovan in the town. We hear your concerns. Thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? None being, Mr. Donovan, could you please come up to the podium, please? Mr. Donovan, I'm just wondering if maybe you could at least reach out to Mr. on 6 Diggle about what happened. You know, you said you'd honestly forgot about it. Maybe you can drop in, talk to him, get things, see if you can't get the relationship. You know, it's went on for, like I said, for about a year, and it's something that just slipped your mind because you had other issues. Understood, but we know the customers, citizens have you know, concern about their property. I think it's important that we kind of listen to their concerns and try to get that resolved, and appreciate if you could do something there for that. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Brenda?
My comment is about that piece of property that gentleman was talking about. It does look like something has gone down through that. It's pretty well cleared out, like just at the end of Diggle, when you go the turnabout. Looked like something had gone down there, and then just off the road, it's all cleared out. I don't know if, I know it's supposed to be a house on there eventually that comes off of Merland, but it looks like maybe some equipment went down there or come up there, and it looks like, I know what he's saying, it looks like they were trying to get an access to Diggle at that end.
We're filling in the building lot. We have a ton of surplus fill on the property. If it all comes down to trees. When we cleared the property, there's wet ground down in the lower area. We cleared that to dig that wet ground out and build a road and a subdivision through there. This property has a ton of surplus. So part of not being able to access that area anymore is I have to find places to put that surplus material that we have. So that large lot there that we're referring to, that was, I don't know, say at the Diggle end, was probably 6 feet lower than Diggle Drive. And at the Merlin end, we actually had to, it's in a cut for the front of it, but we had an area that we could store some fill. So the intent there is to basically make a nice high lot there that matches up roughly with the height of Diggle Drive. With our surplus material, so a house will eventually sit on that. That's had a geotechnical report in progress on it.
It would not look like you could drive on for Diggle to that property.
No, because we don't have frontage on Diggle. What Dwight is saying is that the Department of Transportation owns a piece of property between the town of Quispamsis right away and the property that I own. So we don't actually have physical access there.
Right. But whoever buys that property, that building, I mean, they may be able to find their way just, you know, quietly onto Diggle.
They won't be able to put a driveway anyway because it's not their property. That'd be the town to have to stop that for sure. I know what you're getting at.
We need more people.
Yeah, I
going out
understand.
every day and taking notes and things like that.
If you scroll down on that other drawing, the plan view, that property is identified up there is lot 84-1. I believe it's owned by the province. Yeah.
129, I think, lot number.
Plan 81, yeah. PID 129. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess what Mr. Donovan's saying, that lot's not gonna have access to Diggle. It could have, the house be fronting on Merlin, access will be on Merlin.
Build in the backyard.
Yeah.
Lots of trees would help.
Yep. Well, that's to be
Walking
worked
there.
out with the final plan in the town. So that's one question I want to ask you about the cease and desist. Like, where's that stand?
So we have an ongoing relationship now, which we didn't have before, with the Department of Environment. So the cease and desist order was removed last year. The requirement to do an environmental impact assessment was removed last year. I paid restitution for the damages that we've done. We have an erosion and sediment control plan in place that requires monitoring weekly, plus before and after any rainfall that's greater than 10 millimeters. So I visit that plan every week, check everything. It's quite a process, but we're in good condition with the Department of Environment now. We're allowed on the property. We need to get through you guys an approved engineering design, and we're going to get to construction as soon as we can.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan. With that being said, we have got all our questions answered. Is there a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with term, Dwight, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just point of clarification, as I mentioned in my staff report. just with respect to that area past Street 1, Circle Court, I recognize it's a tentative plan at this stage, but is there some plan in the future for a land transaction, or is that?
Yeah, so we're currently in negotiations with that property owner. Everything seems reasonable. We're going to show them some stuff on the ground. He's going to be coming to you guys at some point for other things he wants to do to his property.
Okay.
But it's ongoing. I think it's for what I believe. I think that we won't have to amend that portion.
Okay. Just so it's noted, and we recognize where it sits, and for PA's just PAC's clarification that if that arrangement doesn't happen, then obviously it would have to come back to PAC again, because there would have to be some sort of shifting in the streets and those types of things. So at this point in time, it's being proposed as shown on the plan, and the property owner is aware of it. So that's the important thing. Thank you.
Is that again, Dwight? Can you show? Is that the one where the cul-de-sac is on Circle Court that we're talking about? Okay, gotcha. Okay, thanks. Good, Dwight? Perfect. Any member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Just need to get the motion going, then we can, oh, there we are. Oh, hang on, Brent. I gotta turn and get you going there, okay?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion. With regards to Furman Park subdivision phase 6, tentative plan, PAC makes.
Can you move that mic a little closer, Brent?
PAC makes the following recommendations. 1, approve the proposed layout and connection. 2, PAC is delegating their authority to the development officer for the approval of the street names for Street 1 and 2 on the tentative plan. 3, the granting of 3.0 meter right-of-way width for Maryland Drive and Street 1 as shown on the plan. 4, a reduction in the street right-of-way width at Street 1 adjacent to 6 Dingle Drive based on an engineer design that establishes the minimum width required to accommodate the street and public infrastructure, and the access land from the 20-meter width right-of-way is proposed consolidated with the property at 6 Dingle Drive as proposed with parcels A and B. 5, the remediation of any excavated land adjacent to 6 Dingle Drive to the street line of the engineer right-of-way with the finished slope ratio as determined accepted by the town's engineering department. That also should be, I guess we should put a line in there regarding the property owner at 6 Dingle to his satisfaction also, along with the engineering department. 6, the suitability of the land proposed for LBB and approvals thereof. 7, extension of the municipal sewage system to provide for future servicing of lots 18-1, 18-2, and Lot B as shown on the tentative plan. Supporting the development officer and council and requiring the submission of a tree planting and restoration plan prior to the issuance of building permit that would detail how a reasonable number of trees will be replaced as part of the development and the full plan to be completed prior to final acceptance of the subdivision of the town. The tree planting and restoration plan shall cover the whole PID 17441 and the subdividing thereof. 9, the submission of the tree planting and restoration plan to the PAC for review and recommendation to council, and council must accept the plan prior to granting assent to the final plan for any portion of phase 6 as outlined in the tentative plan. 10, the developer to submit approvals from DOE permitting the undertaking of any further work on the subject property with failure to provide copies of such approval rendering any tentative approval null and void. And standard conditions will be applied to possible approval of the plan by the development officer.
Dwight?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. One item that was not covered was
the variances, so PEC granting the variances as noted in section. In the bylaw variance section of my staff report, there were a lot with variances. So even a general statement, the PEC grants the variances as noted in the staff report would be sufficient at this stage.
Mr.
Brent?
Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Bishop,
I'll second that.
any debate in that motion? Again, it's a tentative subdivision plan, but go ahead, Brenda.
I would like to see the statement about the land for public purpose also include the fact about 117 to 122 be invested, part of that in the town of Quispamsis, even though they're going to be smaller properties for the developer to sell. What they're selling to people should not be able to develop it. We know they can't, but they will do it anyway. So if it can make the statement from the land for public purposes about those lots, I would appreciate that. That's my,
Okay, would that be something like saying to develop, take those lots and determine if they can be shortened? Or do you want them fully shortened? Is that what you're
I
saying?
want them fully shortened and become part of the watershed or the protected area.
What's the, Brent, no? What would you like, how can we word that accordingly? Oh, hang on, whoa.
I understand where Brenda's coming from, but now you're also putting financial hardship on the developer. I think that should be part of the discussion with regards to the remediation of the property with regards to the tree planting. Put all that as part of one package.
So you're saying to put that part of the tree planting
So
remediation package to cover off some of that work with the land for public purposes?
No, what I'm saying, so to shorten, if we start shortening those lots, the less value to the developer. So now you're putting financial hardship on the developer. So what I'm saying is part of the discussions between council and the planning department is if we have to shorten those properties and there's gonna be a little, then how do you offset it with regards to the remediation of the trees?
Okay, work out a common agreement between the
Yes.
two?
Yeah.
Brenda, you okay with that?
No, I'm not actually, because the developer.
Oh, hang on.
is his own worst enemy. He cleaned the property, took the trees down. Now we have to, some compensation for that in his pocket. I don't agree with that in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, Darren?
No, I'm in full agreement with Brent.
Okay. With that being said, I think we have the current motion in place without shortening the lots. Everything else is there. Can we, any other debate before we take a vote? Can we please vote on that, please? Motion carried by a vote of 4-1. Mr. Donovan, you have a letter in the mail in 5 to 7 business days with your approval. Please work with the town, have all necessary documentation in place. Consult with that at 6 Diggle to get that issue resolved, and please come up with a plan for tree plan. I know you're trying to get some money in your pocket, but we got to to move forward, we got to get everything in place and to get the final document signed. As you note in some of the conditions was to get a plan in place for the tree planting, work with the town to, get that stuff straightened out, and hopefully the customer, at 6 Diggle, you can help work with him and satisfy his needs that he would like to have on that piece of property. So best of luck.
Thanks so much.
All right, we'll go to item 7J, 258 Hampton Road. Could the applicant please come up to the podium, state your name for the record, and... Oh, Andrew, we'll get Dwight to introduce that item. So Dwight, can you please introduce that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a development agreement amendment that's before council. So the project consists of a rezoning that was approved through council for the construction of multi-residential development, essentially 2 apartment buildings with 50 units in each. The original original application that went through council for the rezoning actually had 3 buildings, the 2 buildings as you enter the property. One was basically back onto Pinewood. The second was back onto 254 Hampton Road. And then there was a 3rd building that was sitting backing onto Peak Drive. The developer subsequently came back to council during the COVID and with some challenges in terms of supply chain issues and looking at development as a whole. They decided to eliminate the 3rd building and essentially create 2 buildings in the previous location of running, basically backing onto Pinewood and the residential property on Hampton Road, and introducing storage facilities. That amendment was approved as council. Subsequent to that approval, they've come back to council again to say that we want to reconfigure the layout of the property. That was to address issues with respect to the amount of excavation that would have to be taken to actually to accommodate on the lots the original design and layout of the buildings. So by putting the buildings sort of going into the property would have required a significant amount of excavation as well as construction of retaining walls. It would have presented some additional challenges with stormwater management. So based on a review by the consulting engineer who's present tonight, the idea was presented that it would be a more accommodating and fitting with the lot if the buildings were rotated, simply running parallel with the Hampton Road and keeping the storage facilities, as you can see on the plan, on the back portion of the lot. The amenities in terms of the community garden, I believe, and in terms of the pickleball courts and those types of things, the trails throughout the property would be retained. There would be the building height variances that were granted with the previous application would still remain in effect, as well as I believe there was a variance for reduction in parking. The bylaw requires 1.5 parking spaces per unit. In this particular case, it's 100 units, so that would be 150, and I believe what's being proposed is 136. So there's 14, which generally from a zoning bylaw and planning perspective, multi-residential buildings, their parking requirements are usually either 1-to-1 or about 1.25. So, the number of parking spaces I think is more than adequate for what's being proposed when people either downsize or move into these types of residential living styles. They realize that they have to make some accommodations, and normally that's, they work with what's being provided in terms of parking. And the storage units was provided obviously to provide additional storage for the residents. One of the items that would be addressed obviously through this process and through council in terms of the development agreement will be the use of those storage facilities will be strictly for the residents and not to be rented out to non-residents of the particular facility. So this is before PAC, as it is a requirement under the Community Planning Act that any changes to a amendment or any changes to an agreement that's gone through a rezoning or Section 59 requires the review and comments of the Planning Advisory Committee in terms of whether they support the proposed amendment and any terms and conditions that they feel are reasonable to bring forward to council for consideration in the amending development agreement. And if they feel that the amendment is not reasonable,
providing council with the reason or rationale behind their concerns with what's being proposed. I believe that would be sufficient at this stage to move forward to PAC for questions or comments, and to the consulting engineer or the representative from the applicant. Thanks.
Thanks, Dwight. Mr. Toole, you would have seen the same package we did. Anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to a few questions from PAC members?
No, I'm open to questions.
All right. Mark Goslin.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through you here. What is the setback between the pickleball court and the property line at the back? How many feet is that?
I can't tell you that fast. So the
Originally, I believe, on the first proposal, and I could be wrong by a couple of feet here, I think it was about 50 feet, and then the second proposal was about 75 feet. Again, I stand to be corrected here. My question is, I guess, what's the setback between?
So to me, it looks like it's in the setback. See that dotted line that goes around there? That's the number that you guys approved last time. There was a lot.
So
of
that's the
concern.
same number as the last
Number.
time? Okay.
So you can see the garage and the parking area stay inside that dash line. The pickleball court's also outside that dash line.
Okay, so it's the same setback as the
The
previous
buffer
plan?
at the back that everyone was concerned about is not being touched.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Any further questions for the applicant? Where this is a rezoning, there's no questions from the public on this item, so would any member of PAC like to put a motion forward with some concerns or approval? Mr. Bishop?
I'll put a motion forward that PAC approve the amended development agreement for 258 Hampton Road, PID 251959 for Elm Tree Hill multiple residential apartment development. It should be subject to the following terms and conditions. 1, approval of the lot width variance of 76 meters from the town zoning bylaw 038, section 9B1. 2, approval of a 2.0 meter height variance from the zoning bylaws 038, section 9E1. 3, approval of a variance of 12 parking spaces the town zoning bylaws 038, section 9I1. 4, traffic study is conducted to determine if there are conflicts or concerns with traffic patterns, the turn movements of Pinewood Drive and McCarran Drive at peak traffic volumes. Excuse me. 5, comprehensive stormwater management report is prepared by a qualified engineer registered with the province of New Brunswick. The site plan must demonstrate and acknowledge that there will be a need for on-site storage indicated by a stormwater detention pond. 6, the development must connect to the municipal water and sewer systems. 7, a detailed landscaping plan is prepared demonstrating adequate buffering from adjacent residential properties. 8, streetlight installations at the entrance to the development is required. 9, all on-site lighting to be directed downward. 10, the materials and equipment ordered on-site are responsibility of the developer. 11, developer is to enter in a developer's agreement with the town of Quispamsis. 12, developer shall undertake to complete the work for each approved phase within a period of 2 years following approval. 3, the development must be completed as per all applicable town bylaws and policies thereto. 14, the development does not substantially proceed within 6 months of the date of approval for each phase, the developer shall restore the lands to an attractive natural state, and such restoration is to be completed within 1 month. And 15, building permits are issued in accordance with the National Building Code of Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Can I have a seconder on that? Mark?
I'll second that.
Any debate on that motion? None being, we have a vote, please. Motion carried, 5-7 business days. Well, we won't know if this is gonna go through council with our comments and concerns, so best of luck getting that approved.
Thanks.
Next item, item 7K, Hamel Drive Developments. Could the applicant come up to the podium, please? State their name for the record.
Andrew Harrigan and Brad Lockhart.
Thank you. Dwight, you want to introduce that topic for us, please? Sorry, Dwight, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, as similar to the previous application that was before Planning Advisory Committee, this is again a development agreement amendment that's going through council. It is the result of a Section 59 rezoning that went from a number of years ago, went from R1 to an integrated development that will see a mix of apartment buildings as well as semi-detached style housing throughout the development. This area is currently serviced by municipal water and sewer. So at this stage, the applicant has come back because the timelines of the original agreement have expired. They're requesting some additional units to be added to the particular property. When the initial application was done, the number of units was restricted to 92, and then subsequent amendments to the original application brought it up to 109. And I believe at this stage, the applicant is looking at potentially adding 15 more. Again, recognizing the property is serviced by municipal water and sewer. Those are two items, particularly water is usually of a concern, but in this particular case, because it's municipal service, the density can be increased. The traffic study was done with the original application. Obviously, servicing or traffic access in the particular area would be through Milliken Drive, Swanton Drive. When we look at this particular area, since the initial subdivision or since the initial traffic study was done, there's been no further development. There may have been one or two homes that have been put in there with the extension of the water line, but in terms of significant development, there's been no land that would have been available to see an overall increase in terms of lots or development. So nothing's really changed in this particular area that would sort of impact the traffic flow patterns. So the applicants are basically looking to add some additional units to address the housing need and seeing this as an opportunity given the area and it's being serviced by municipal water and sewer. Part of the reason the timeline has elapsed and this project hasn't taken off is because the area that you see on the plan that's sort of identified as being land for public purposes is a wetland area. So they had to work with the Department of Environment to get the necessary regulatory, to meet the regulatory requirements and come up with a plan that would be approved by the Department of Environment, in particular with wall walls, and then their potential damage or impacting the wetland had to be compensated. So those types of things had to be worked out with the Department of Environment. And during that time, the initial timelines for development had expired, so they're back to council to move the application along. I think that would be suffice at this point. Again, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thanks, Dwight. You would have received the same application we did. Anything you'd like to add or discuss?
No, I think that was a good summary, and we're happy to address any questions.
Anyone from PAC have any questions for the applicant? Mark?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through you again. Are we voting on the phase one only here, or we're voting for the whole development here? Phase one, phase two, phase three, phase four, and anything else?
The amendment is for the development as a whole. Yep.
Any other questions for the applicant? Member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with comments? Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before the motion that the Planning Advisory Committee support council with the approval of the developers agreement amendment for the development of Hamel Drive Developments Limited for integrated mixed residential development on PID 173732. It should be subject to the following terms and conditions. Number one, any variances such as building location setbacks to be considered under a separate application as the final designs are yet to be submitted to the town. Number two, the developer shall pay the town the sum of 78,000 Canadian dollars, representing an outstanding levy for municipal sanitary sewerage installation to lands. As part of this amendment, the repayment schedule of the levy must be adjusted with the caveat there shall be no further adjustments to the repayment schedule, regardless of the state of the development given the period of this outstanding levy. Number three, a detailed comprehensive water supply and source assessment report by a certified professional engineer is to be completed and submitted. Number four, an engineered design stormwater management plan and drainage system stamped by a registered professional engineer licensed to practice in the province of New Brunswick is to be completed and submitted for each phase of development. Number five, a site design showing the creation of the buffering zone as it relates to the neighboring residential R1 zones must be approved by the town prior to construction. Number six, street lighting installation at the entrance to the development shall be installed. Number seven, all building lights to be downward directed. Number eight, all materials and equipment ordered on site are the responsibility of the developer. Number nine, the developer is to enter into a developer's agreement with the town of Quispamsis. Number 10, the developer shall undertake to complete the work for each approved phase within a period of 2 years following approval. Number 11, the land shall be developed in accordance with the most recently dated building development plans filed with and approved by the town for each phase. And number 12, if the development does not substantially proceed within 6 months of the date of approval for each phase, the developer shall restore the lands to an attractive natural state, and such restoration is to be completed within 1 month.
Thank you, Mark. Dwight, you'd like to add something?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, the recommendation regarding the WASA, the water source and assessment, is not applicable to this particular application because it's serviced by municipal water.
Okay. Thank you. It's already serviced? Is that what you're? Yeah, serviced by municipal.
WASAs are only required where there's no municipal water. This particular case, it's serviced by municipal water, so the requirement is not required.
What item was that again?
3.
Item 3?
Yep.
Yeah, item 3. We have a seconder on that, or Mr. Bishop?
I'll second that.
Thank you. On any debate? Please vote on that. Thank you. That motion's carried. Comments will be transferred to the council for amending your developer's agreement, so best of luck in your future development.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Move on to item 7L, Bryden subdivision. I'm not sure, they had no applicant here, we're just doing, or is there? Dwight's looking after that one. Okay, Dwight, you're on.
So this particular application, it's simply, well, as it sits today, it's a large tract of land on the Vincent Road. The property owner is looking to create a parcel of land just to contain his current dwelling and accessory buildings as currently shown. The reason it's before the Planning Advisory Committee is because he's creating a lot and it requires contribution of land or cash in lieu. The back portion of that property, currently there's a municipal services easement, local government services easement, as they're referred to today, that houses sewer line, as well as the Saunders Brook
trail cuts across the property. So the piece of land for public purposes that's being proposed is to simply capture the town trail, so it's in town property versus on private property. To my knowledge, the municipal services easement and does not reflect the use of the property for the trail purposes, so that would bring that in sort of compliance with the requirements and allow us to get the land to contain the trail. So I'm just looking at part of the approval process that Planning Advisory Committee look for their recommendations in terms of the suitability of the land for public purposes that's being proposed, and then that can be brought forward to council as part of the assent process for council to approve the land for public purposes as well. So just looking for PEC's recommendations regarding suitability LPP, so we can move the plan forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. Any comments from members of PAC to Dwight? Any member of PAC like to put a motion forward with comments or concerns for the land for public purposes? Like that's what we're asking, correct, Dwight? Any comments on the existing plan?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just looking for any comments or recommendations and a motion that PAC is either supports the land for public purposes as proposed.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion that PAC proceed with the recommendation of the planning officer that the land as outlined in remnant of PID 248518 adjacent to the Outer Brook Trail or Saunders Brook Trail be accepted as presented.
Thank you, Brent. Can I have a seconder on that? Mark?
I'll second that.
All right. Can we all vote? Any debate? Can we vote? Motion carried. Dwight, you have to provide those comments as per the plan. And we'll move on to item 8, information items and discussion, none being. We'll move on to item 9, adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Bishop?
So moved.
Can I have a seconder on that? Mark?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.